Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the very controversial book, Illuminati 4, Genocide and War by Henry Makows. Our goal here is to simply lay out its central thesis, to walk you through the arguments presented in the source material, so we can understand the worldview it's putting forward.
Right off the bat, the book kicks things off with this quote, which it attributes to J. Edgar Hoover. This really sets the tone. The author is basically saying, listen, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound so crazy, so monstrous, that your first instinct will be to dismiss it. It's a way of framing the entire narrative before it even begins.
So here's our roadmap for understanding the book's logic. We'll start with the conspiracy itself. Then we'll look at who the book says are the architects. After that, we'll get into the wild idea of history as a hoax, explore the supposed endgame, and wrap up with the book's final warning.
All right, let's jump right in.
What is this monstrous conspiracy the book is built around? Okay, so here's the core claim, and it's a big one. The book argues that an ancient, satanic conspiracy is right at the finish line, and its final move? To use a Third World War as a cover to, well, exterminate huge portions of the population. The author says we're all suffering from a kind of cognitive dissonance, that the signs are right in front of us, but our brains just can't accept that something so evil could actually be happening. So, if that's the alleged plan, you've got to ask, who's supposedly behind it all? That brings us to our next section, where the book names names. According to the book, the driving ideology behind this whole thing is something the author specifically calls Kabbalist Judaism. Now, it is crucial to understand this is the book's own definition. It's presented as a belief system where everything is flipped on its head. Evil is good, lies are truth. It's a complete inversion of traditional spiritual values. And the book really frames this as a fundamental clash of civilizations. On one side, you have Christianity, which it says is about a connection to God and serving ideals like truth and love. But on the other side, you have the book's version of Kabbalist Judaism, which it claims rejects all that, inverts the ideals, and pretty shockingly posits that only its followers are truly human. The author boils it down to this. One worldview wants to serve God, the other wants to become God. Building on that ideology, the author points the finger at three main groups it says are the architects. First, what it calls organized Jewry, and it specifically names the Rothschild banking cartel. Second is Freemasonry, which the book calls a version of this ideology for non-Jews. And third, a group called Chabad, which it labels a Jewish doomsday cult. The book's claim is that these three groups are all working together. This is where the claims get even more startling. The book argues these groups haven't just been planning for the future. They've been actively faking the past. That history, as you and I know it, is basically a giant hoax. So what's the evidence for this? The author points to a letter allegedly written back in 1871 by a Freemason named Albert Pike. This letter is presented as a literal blueprint for 3 world wars, each one engineered to achieve a specific goal, all leading up to a final, devastating conflict that will leave the world ready for a new global order. And it's not just the wars that are supposedly fake, it's the leaders too. The book claims that historical enemies we learn about in school, Churchill, FDR, Stalin, even Hitler, were all secretly Freemasons, all playing their parts. And it says the same thing is happening today with leaders like Trump, Putin, and Netanyahu. The core argument is that it's all just political theater, a performance to keep us distracted while both sides are secretly controlled by the exact same people. This theory of a faked reality extends right up to the present day. For instance, the COVID-19 pandemic. The book presents this chart and argues that COVID wasn't some new deadly virus. It was just the regular seasonal flu rebranded. The author calls it a scamdemic, a psychological test to see how easily the public would comply and give up their freedoms. Which, of course, leads to the big question. Why? If all of this deception is real, what's the point? What is the ultimate goal here? What's the endgame? Well, according to this book, the endgame isn't about money or politics, it's spiritual. The source uses this quote attributed to a UN official to claim that to even get into this so-called New World Order, a person will have to take a pledge to worship Lucifer. So the whole conspiracy is framed as a battle for humanity's soul. And to get there, the book claims you can't just build a new world on top of the old one. You have to burn the old one to the ground first. Citing this quote, the author calls the strategy creative destruction. The idea is that every pillar of our current society, family, nation, religion, you name it, has to be completely annihilated to make way for their new system. And a really chilling piece of this endgame puzzle, according to the book, is mass depopulation. The author cites someone they call a Satanist insider who claims the goal is a 70% reduction in the global population by the year 2030, getting rid of what the source calls billions of useless eaters. This is presented as a key part of the plan.
And that brings us to our final section, the book's ultimate warning to the reader about the very nature of the world we live in. The book wraps everything up with this quote, supposedly from a Mossad operative. It really crystallizes the final warning, that we are all living inside a movie. Our reality, it claims, is completely scripted. Wars, pandemics, political movements, they aren't real events. They're scenes in a play, produced and directed by a hidden group, and the rest of humanity are just unwitting actors on their stage. So there you have it. That's the internal logic of Illuminati 4, as laid out by its author. It's a journey from a monstrous conspiracy to its alleged architects, to a complete reinterpretation of history, and a really terrifying endgame. The book presents a comprehensive and, let's be honest, a deeply shocking worldview, which leaves us with one final, very important question to consider. What is the purpose of building a narrative like this?